Hey guys, today we're doing a stat breakdown for Volkanovski vs Rodriguez for the UFC Featherweight title, looking at records, striking stats, wrestling stats, and my predictions for the fight. Starting with records, Volkanovski is 12-1 in the UFC and is undefeated at featherweight, whereas Rodriguez is 10-2 in the UFC with one draw. Both fighters have insane win-loss ratios, 12 for Volk and 5 for Rodriguez. If we look at the combined record of their opponents, Volk's opponents have a crazy 144 wins and 68 losses in the UFC, whereas Rodriguez's opponents are 46-30 in the octagon. It's clear that Volk's opponents have an enormous win-loss ratio of 2.12, indicating he's fought much better opponents than Rodriguez. If we look at win methods for these fighters, Volk has loved going the distance, with 8 decisions alongside 4 KOs, whereas Rodriguez has gone the distance in half of his wins alongside 4 KOs and 1 submission. If we look at loss methods, both of these guys have rarely lost. Volk once by decision, and Rodriguez once by decision and once by knockout. Comparing the striking numbers, we can see Volk is absolutely insane. His striking accuracy is 13% higher, his striking defense is 6% higher, and he lands more than 1.5 more significant strikes per minute. However, these stats don't quantify how dynamic Rodriguez's striking actually is. Looking at Volk's accuracy, he's been above 50% in 11 of 13 fights and is 1-1 in the UFC when he goes under 50% accuracy. Alongside his accuracy, his defense is also amazing. His opponents have struck below 40% in 8 of 13 fights, and his one loss was when Makhachev struck at 60%. Note that the 2 highest strike accuracy against Volk were wrestlers, so the threat of a takedown might drop his hands. Looking at strike accuracy for Rodriguez, although there's no clear trend, he's surpassed 50% accuracy in almost half his fights. Considering the crazy strikes he throws, this is enormous. If we look at Rodriguez's strike defense, his opponent struck at 39% accuracy in his first 8 fights, but an enormous 53% in his last 4 fights. This is concerning since Volk has some of the most accurate hands in the division. Looking at knockdowns, Volk has knockdowns in 5 of his 13 UFC fights. However, he only has a 40% win rate with a knockdown. Therefore, Volk doesn't rely on one big shot to get it done, which is perhaps the only thing he's missing in his arsenal. Looking at knockdowns conceded, Volk has only been knocked down once in his career by Mendes. What's interesting is that in the fight, Mendes struck at 54%, whilst the average versus Volk is only 41%. Therefore, I think you need to land at high accuracy if you want to knock Volk down. Whilst being known for big flashy strikes, Rodriguez only has 3 knockdowns in 13 UFC fights, although when he lands it's all over with a 100% finish rate with a knockdown. Rodriguez, however, has never been knocked down in his career, and despite fighting some dangerous opponents, Emmett and Ortega with 3 KOs each, Holloway and Stevens with 8 KOs each, and Zombie with 4 knockouts. Looking at the strike differential, Volk has never been outstruck in his career, although his 4 closest fights in his career have been when the strike differential is the lowest. For Rodriguez, he was badly outstruck in both of his losses, and was slightly outstruck by Zombie, who was 5 seconds away from a decision victory. If we compare the wrestling stats, we can see Volk also has a moderate edge. He has nearly double the takedowns landed per 15 minutes, with a higher takedown accuracy by 6% and a higher takedown defense by 6%. Rodriguez does have the edge with submissions attempted, and he's always active even when on his back, throwing up elbows and submission attempts. If we look at takedowns for Volk, he was mostly a wrestler early on in his career, although recently he has focused on striking, landing a takedown in 2 of his past 8 fights. Looking at his takedown defense, Volk has only been taken down in 2 of his past 7 fights. However, the past 3 fights he was taken down in have been close calls. Mendes knocked him down, Ortega had the closest guillotine I've ever seen, and Makhachev had his back on numerous occasions. So whilst I don't see it happening, takedowns for Rodriguez could help get it done. Looking at takedowns for Rodriguez now, he did wrestle a surprising amount early in his career, although he's only landed 1 takedown in his past 8 fights from 12 attempts. On the other hand, Rodriguez does get taken down a bit, having been taken down in 9 of 13 fights, including all of his past 4 fights. We can see from control time that Volk has been wrestling less and less than he had early in his career, although don't let this fool you, he still averaged 174 seconds of control in his past 4 fights. Looking at Volk's opponents, he has really only been controlled by Makhachev, who had loads of back control time. Rodriguez is also no stranger to control time, having 150 plus seconds of control in 3 fights, although more often than not he has less than 50 seconds, which has occurred on 9 occasions. Rodriguez has been susceptible to being controlled in his career, and has been controlled by more than 300 seconds in 5 different fights. He did, however, win 3 of those fights, which may be due to his nasty elbows and activity when on his back. To summarise the key points of this fight, Volk averages 56% strike accuracy, and Rodriguez's opponents have averaged 53% strike accuracy in his past 3 fights. If Rodriguez doesn't up his defense, he could be in trouble. This is since Volk has never lost a strike differential, and Rodriguez has been outstruck by 50 plus strikes in both of his losses. However, the in for Rodriguez is that Volk got knocked down when Mendes struck at 54%, which is much higher than Volk is used to, and Rodriguez has been striking at 53.5% average in his last 2 fights. Therefore, for my predictions for how each fighter gets it done are, I see Volk's high output and accuracy being too much for Rodriguez, and he piles on a crazy strike output, coasting to a 50-44 decision. On the other hand, I feel like Rodriguez needs a big strike to get it done. And to set this up, he needs to be accurate early, striking above 50%, allowing him to land a round 2 TKO, especially if he can force Volk to shoot for a takedown and catch him with a knee. That's the end of this video, guys. That's what I think from the stats. Let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen. And as always, like, subscribe, share, do all those good things, and enjoy the fight card this weekend.